Well, hello, hello, hello. You are listening to the No Brainers Empowering Possibilities podcast. This is dialogues of encouragement with fresh perspectives, invitations to ahas, a little bit of science, a dash of behavioral psychology, and a whole lot of creative fun. So if leveling up is on your radar, my friend, you are at the right show. I'm your host, Roseanne Marsh, and I'm the author of the teen and parent empowerment curriculum called Level Up. And you are listening to episode number 26, The Happiest People on Earth. So years ago, I want to tell you, I was intrigued by a documentary that was advertised by 60 Minutes. They claimed that they had learned who the happiest people on Earth were and why they were so happy. So, oh my goodness, why would I not want to know about this? And I remember setting aside my evenings so that I could be there and take a bunch of notes so that I could incorporate all the secrets that these people had on how they had figured out to be the happiest people on Earth. So this documentary started out talking about some of the top ranking areas that they wanted to evaluate to see if these people truly were the happiest. So some of the categories were, what did the people eat? And what was their health like? Where did they live? What did they do? And what was their successful level? And was that associated with it? And then how much money did they have? So it was interesting. It was like, okay, I want to learn about this. So first of all, they started out with what the people eat. And of course, they interviewed a lot of different people. They talked to people who did the Mediterranean diet. That was at that time one of the healthiest diets out there. And they talked to even people who, ate blubber in some of the coldest areas of the world. And it didn't seem to make a difference of what they ate, whether it was pasta or sushi or rice and beans. The happiness quotient with those that ate different things had really nothing to do with the food they were eating, but had to do with the gratitude they had that they had wrapped around having food. So that was an interesting piece, but they still hadn't found the happiest people on Earth. Then they evaluated different parts of the world. And if whether you lived in different places or climates had anything to do with if you were the happiest people on Earth. So they looked at jungles and the rainforest that was rich with oxygen. And they looked at the humidity level. Was it the temperate areas where air was fresh and crisp, or was it the desert where it had rich sands and open spaces? And then they looked, of course, at those who lived on beautiful beaches by the ocean, right? Who doesn't want to live there? And there's certainly those that love living there. In fact, many of the people flocked there for vacations, even if they couldn't afford to live there. And was there something about the sunshine and the beach and the ocean water? And even in poverty areas where they were near the ocean, the people were happy and contented, but was it the sun factor? Was it the water? Was it the balmy ocean breeze? And the deduction came though, as even though they lived in these beautiful places, in these beautiful jungles and beautiful places of nature, there really didn't seem to be a common denominator of, this area is the happiest, or this climate was the happiest, or these elements of nature made them the happiest. So they had to move on to their next category. So as the documentary went on, they now wanted to see if it had anything to do with what the person did for a living. So they interviewed all these executives of companies, and they interviewed street laborers, and they interviewed those who worked on the stock market and those who worked in retail. And again, there wasn't a category of worker that was happier than another. Every single job had its pros and its cons. Now, I did find out that those who had a lot of responsibility seemed to have more stress in their life. And they certainly didn't seem to be the happiest people on life. Even though they had the power to make changes, it did bring them a sense of contentment because of that. But some of them even lamented simpler times, the more success that they ended up and the more things that they had to manage. Those who did menial labor wished for different circumstances in many instances, but there were those that were just grateful for work and happy that what they were doing, the possibility of providing income for their family. So they evaluated the different sectors of jobs, and they found that the happiest were those that were passionate about their work. And it really had nothing to do with the income it brought in, and it didn't really pigeonhole them to a certain occupation, but they still didn't feel like they had found the happiest people on earth. Then the last category was an interesting category, because that's one where they evaluated, did the amount of money that you have make a difference on how happy you were? Now, obviously, those who had high paying jobs expressed an amount of freedom that they had, and the experience that because of the income they had and the conveniences that they enjoyed, they had the ability to go to those beautiful places of the earth, and they had the ability to eat those choice foods of the world. But they didn't seem to be the happiest. So they interviewed people of moderate income and those with low income. And while it was identified that not having money did not bring happiness, because it brought stress and anxiety and an inability to take care of health and cares and, well, the basic needs, right? But it was not a determiner of how happy they were. Now, this was an interesting category within that category, because they decided to interview people that had won the lottery. Those people who had purchased tickets and won millions of dollars. And they literally went from a modest to low income and living from paycheck to paycheck to now having paychecks that gave them hundreds of thousands of dollars and even like millions of dollars per year over like a 20-year lifespan. So here's an instant where people were wishing they had money and now they had it. And did that make them the happiest people on earth? Did it bring the happiness that they had desired? So they interviewed person after person. And here's some of the observations from those interviews that I thought were so interesting. Most of them, when they got their first payment, literally went on shopping sprees. They purchased homes and cars and vacations, things that they'd never had the opportunity to have. And they paid off their debts and started paying off friends' debts and families' debts. And then all of a sudden, people were coming out of the woodwork with their hand out, asking for help, wanting thousands of dollars. Well, aren't you my best friend? Why won't you give to me? And those that had not had assets and now had money, were feeling guilty now because they had. So they started handing out money to other people, and then finding that when they did cut off giving money, the people were outraged or no longer their friend. So what they were able to observe was, who truly is my friend and who were friends of convenience? So the majority of them were divorced within the next 2 years. They ended up with different spouses. So that was a life change for them. A large percent of them ran out of money, even when they'd been given large amounts of money, because they had never had to budget at that level. So when they were asked if money had brought them happiness, they defined their old life as one that they were maybe happier at, but the conveniences and things they never experienced definitely brought moments of happiness, because it brought opportunity and the ability to see things they'd never seen before. They asked if they regretted winning the money. And they said they weren't prepared for it. They handled it wrong. It didn't bring happiness. It brought a different set of problems. And only a few of them said that they wish they'd gone back and not taken the money. I don't think I ever would have refused the money, right? But happiness is an emotion that is fleeting. Happiness is non-permanent state. But joy is a state of being. Joy is a higher value, and it's beyond just an emotion. It's an engulfing of the heart, the mind, the body, and the soul. And so when I watched this documentary and they talked about, well, does money make you happy? None of them really felt like the money made them happy. So I wondered, are they going to pinpoint who the happiest people on earth are? Because they said they know who they are. So guess who they felt the happiest people on earth were? Are you ready for this? They felt it was the Amish. The Amish are the German Dutch descent, and the majority of them are living in the United States in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania, or Holmes County, Ohio. And the Amish are distinguished by in communities where they live and the way they dress. Now, years ago, I had the privilege of going and visiting, and many of you that are listening today have probably had that opportunity too, to visit and see a lifestyle that is very different from what we live. But what I loved about this documentary, they brought out 4 core values that the Amish live by. And there are things that we can learn from this and see, can I adapt that into my life? So these 4 core values are, first of all, it was faith. Faith in a higher power, in a higher being. The Amish culture, they valued the simple life of faith. They believe that their religious faith and the way they live is really interdependent. And these core beliefs lead them to a very strong set of values of faith, family, community, and a simple, unworldly way of living. So the first was faith. The second is family. So family is at the heart of their community. So it's a very important social unit of the Amish community. And the Amish place great value on time spent together as family and connection with each other. They run family businesses together. They eat meals together. They attend church services. They do barn raisings together and other community events together. And it's not unusual for Amish families to have 7 to 10 children. So you'll also see the children helping at market stands. And you would think that would add more stress, right? But there is like this community of helping, picking corn, attending to animals. And they approach life as a unit. And the children learn very young how to work hard, that work ethic. So the dedication to family continues with even the older family members. There's wisdom brought in from the older family members, and this multi-generations living together, they help with caring for the older ones and rearing the younger children. So there's this big, huge support system. So these large multi-generational family units contribute to the strength and the growth of this extended family, which is community. And that's their third core value, is the strength of their community. And the spirit of the Amish lifestyle is exhibited through their strong sense of dedication to their church community. And they believe that the community is at the heart of their life. And it's the way of salvation to live in a world that's really separated from the rest of the world. They separate themselves from the rest of the communities so that they can create this unique support system. So community members will freely give up their time and their skills to help one another. You know, one of the good examples of, maybe you've heard of these, the Amish barn raising, when the community comes together and they help a family build a barn. And they have several men that will help build the barn, and then several women who are feeding the men, and several women that are taking care of the children. So this is a reminder of the Amish tradition of community and craft that's coming together all as one. So whether it's a barn raising, offering wisdom to a fellow community member, consoling a family that is suffering a loss, providing financial assistance, the members of the community, they support each other. And dependence on that church community is very, very strong. And church members are there to help each other every day in times of difficulty, disaster, and even those good times. So that fourth core value is simplicity. So we've got faith, we've got family, we've got community, and we've got simplicity. And the most obvious trait of the Amish communities is that they choose to live a very simple lifestyle. But the reason is that they choose to live a simple lifestyle is so that they feel that simplicity is a symbol of humility. So they take very seriously the Bible commandment to separate themselves from worldly things. So often the first thing that identifies the Amish is the way they dress. Their fashions are very simple, they're practical, they're modest, and their clothing is generally made out of very plain fabrics. Their choice of clothing shows their commitment to that Amish way of living very simply. And despite many advancements in our society, they don't always embrace the modern things or the worldly things like electricity or technology, even though they do use those. But even vehicles are seldom used. But other modern conveniences that many of us depend on every day, they aren't as dependent. I've always thought, man, if there's a crisis or something, maybe I need to find an Amish community to be a part of. They believe that worldliness can keep them from being close to God, which could present influences that will bring down their community. So they restrict things like unnecessary items, fancy clothes, TV, iPhones, and they feel like the modern world could really intrude into their lives. And if they can keep that out, they feel that they can stay more focused on faith and family. So by following those four core values of faith, family, community, and simple living, and a modest living, the Amish live their religious beliefs, and they live a very unique life. So I was really surprised. I was like, wow, it's the Amish that are, according to 60 Minutes, right? So as I watched the documentary, one of the things that impressed me was the way that they did not believe in building fences in between their homes. Now, they had fences for animals to pen them in, but they didn't build fences. And in the American society, when the neighborhoods started going up and people started building fences, there wasn't the sense of community that there used to be. And I thought that was so interesting. So the Amish are helping each other raise their children, helping each other with their animals, helping each other with raising their barns. And there's just this feeling of relationship that they have. Now, you and I may look at that and think, well, that's amazing for them. And I will say that. I think that's amazing for them, but I don't know if I could do that. I don't know if I could live in an Amish community. I don't know if I could give up the beauty of having electricity and technology or the expression of dressing in the way that I want to dress, whatever my personality is. And I'm grateful for modern technology and its ability to connect us with the world, right? In fact, many of you listening to me right now are far, far away from where I am. But what I got from this was, as restrictive as some of this may feel, the Amish way of life had values that made them feel like the happiest people on earth for them. They weren't alone. They supported each other, and they had a common goal. Well, no, we don't have to be Amish. We don't have to live into their community, but we can adapt some different things. And it's incredible that they thought how important it was to keep out the influences of the world, the comparisons to what other people have. They are successful business people. They're known for their trades and their quality of goods. Those who don't farm become like furniture builders and construction makers. And I have to say, I myself have ordered a sewing machine cabinet from the Amish, and that was to fit an old treadle machine I had, and it came, and it's beautiful workmanship. So there are things that I have learned from other documentaries too. And one that was so interesting, it talked about who are the happiest countries out there. And did you know there's actually an annual report, a happiness report that's published by the United Nations? And it's published, and countries rank, they look at research on how citizens trust in their government, and they trust in the large institutions in their governments. And the World Happiness Report really is changing the conversations around the world. But do you want to hear who they are saying are the happiest countries? I found this was interesting. The top one for the last 5 years was Finland, with Denmark second, then Iceland, Switzerland, Netherlands, Luxembourg, Sweden, Norway, Israel, and New Zealand. Now, those of you who are listening from the United States right now, the United States is ranked number 16. And then the countries on the bottom are like Afghanistan, Lebanon, Zimbabwe, Rwanda, Botswana, etc. Those are those war-torn countries where people don't feel safe. So happiness truly is connected with how safe we feel. So what did we learn from these and other reports? Happiness is not a place we live. It's not defined by the job we have or how successful we are. It's not exclusively about what we eat. And it isn't about the money that we have. And it isn't how important our job is. These things don't define happiness. But it is about how we react to life and how we accept where we are at. So I came up with 5 things that I feel are important ways for us to feel more happiness. Well, I'm going to say it, to create more happiness in our life. Because it didn't matter where these people lived. And one of the things that I thought was so poignant was even in these poverty-stricken places, they found happy people. They found happy children, and they had very little. They had maybe a ball to play with, and the town just lit up because they had a ball and they were grateful and happy about it. I thought there are lessons for us to learn about acceptance and being happy about where we are, wherever we are, in whatever circumstance we are. And when we talk about happiness, the joy word connects with it. But they are 2 different things, because we can have glimpses of happiness, but joy is a state of being, of where we embody it. And no matter what we're going through, whether it's a crisis, whether it's a hard thing, whether it's a tribulation, whether it's someone we've lost, and I just lost my father, we can have joy in those times. And there are things that we can do to set us up to succeed so that we are prepared to move towards joy, even when those glimpses of happiness maybe fall away from us. So if you're ready for my list, and for those of you who are on live, I'm excited to hear what your steps are, those things that you do to bring happiness and joy into your life, because man is that he might have joy. And we can create either joy or dissatisfaction in our life. So here's my list. Can't wait to hear about yours. So the first one is, I feel that we need to prepare ourselves mentally to have joy. We just cannot let life slap us back and forth. So we have to get ourselves in a joyful state of mind. So like I said, happiness is fleeting or short term, but we can find joy. And no matter what is happening around us, we can be in that state. We're really like a container. We're a container, and we're full of all sorts of things. We're full of anger and despair, stress. We're tired. We have anxiety. We have happiness, exhilaration. There's all sorts of things that we're like this container. At the end of the night, we're full. But then we get to decide what we're going to keep in there, right? We get to decide what we're going to take out. And I think this is probably one of the most important things we can do, is mentally prepare ourselves at night. When we come home at night, we've got to sort out and decompress from what happened in the day. Now, why do I say at the night? This can be in the morning, but I feel like the nighttime is an amazing time to do it, because we've got to mentally prepare ourselves before we go to sleep. The brain is super active at night. Yes, it goes through a sleep pattern and it washes itself, but it grabs onto and processes everything that we go to sleep with. If we are in a state of unhappiness, disturbed, irritated, angry, it's going to process that. And we know that we get those loops of thoughts that it will process and continue. And the brain does an amazing job of finding evidence within it on all those things that we are dissatisfied with. So we're mad at our boss. We go to sleep on it. We get up in the morning, and boy, the brain has found all these reasons why we should be mad at our boss. So at night, we decompress, we journal it out, get out everything we can. There's lots of different skills that we teach and level up, but journaling is one that you can do. Get it out of you. Then decide what you're going to fill it with. That's the beautiful thing. This vessel, fill it back up. One of the most beautiful things is gratitude. What are we grateful for today? What were those snippets of happiness that we had? What we focus on grows. What we water grows. So what do we want to focus on? What do we want our lens to be? And fill it full of that. I remember it was a May day and it was snowing. And I decided I was going to have a good day that day. And as I was driving down the freeway, I was like, oh my gosh, look at all this moisture. Oh, bless all the buds and everything that they're coming out, that they'll be okay. And a guy clipped in front of me and I was like, oh my gosh, he must be in a hurry. I hope he gets where he's going safely. Now, if I had not mentally prepared that day, I'm sure I would have acted totally different. But joy is a focus before it becomes a feeling. I'm going to say that again. Joy is a focus before it becomes a feeling. We have to focus on finding those gratitude pieces. So the first one is to prepare ourselves mentally. The second one is make self-care a part of your routine. We have got to take care of ourselves. When we eat right, we know we feel differently. When I eat more live foods, I feel different. I have more clarity. It's easier for me to be happy than when I've stuffed myself with sugar and with cookies and all those things that make me not feel so good. It's harder for me to feel happy when I don't have sleep. Just lately, the last couple of days, I was totally exhausted and someone came at me and I came right back at him. I made a mistake and reacted in a way that I didn't want to react. I let go of my happiness and my joy by a decision I made. But a lot of it had to do with the fact that I wasn't rested. I wasn't taking care of my body. So that self-care is the second one. Third is make time for relationships. Remember the Amish, it was all about relationships. Spend time with family to create those bonding memories. And, if you have an estranged family, I have friends that their family situation isn't good. It's toxic. But you know what? We can find a tribe anywhere. We are wired for connection, though. We are meant to not be solitary. We are not meant to be alone, but it doesn't have to be the familial, the biological. Your tribe can be something different. It can be finding those that birds of a feather that flock together. The happiest people are in communities where there's belonging, where there's contributing. And don't forget, there's a relationship with your higher power. If you have not listened to that episode that I have about don't miss out to connecting to your higher power, whatever that higher power is, the happiness comes from that connection. Even when there's all this other stuff coming, joy comes from having that connection. So the first is obviously prepare yourself mentally, make self-care as part of your routine, make time for relationships. The fourth is laugh and love more. Find ways to laugh every day. I have a friend that we took our sons on a trip to Southern Utah. So there was 5 boys and us 2 moms, right? And we were fixing a toilet in the condo and we had to go purchase some pieces to fix it. And I don't know what it was, but something struck us as funny. And we started laughing and laughing. And it took our breath away. And we took the boys to dinner and we'd start laughing again. And I'm not talking about the little giggle. I'm talking about the caffeine. I mean, we could not catch our breath. And the boys were like, what? It's so funny. But have you ever had those times when you could not stop laughing? It was such a release. We as moms needed that chance to just let it out and laugh for a minute. The endorphins were unreal from all that laughing. So find a way to laugh, even if it's a funny video or something. The fifth one is be involved in something that you are passionate about. What's your joy list? Write out your joy list and then make it a part of your life. It's those things that make you so happy that you want to get out of bed, that you've got butterflies in your stomach, that you cannot wait to get to it. We have to have those things that just light a fire in us, that give us a purpose in life. When you look at people that are depressed, there isn't a purpose. There isn't something that lights a fire. So give ourselves a reason to jump out of bed. We have to plan our happiness. It's not all about what we eat or where we live or the money or what job we have. It has to do with us creating the happiness. So what we water grows, what we focus on develops. It's not our circumstances, but what we create with our circumstances that determines our happiness. So I want to thank you for joining me this week. Last week had done one on how to get through grief. And this week it felt like, you know what? I want to remember those things that I was taught by that documentary years and years ago about who are those happiest people on earth. And you know what? We can be the happiest people on earth. We are creators and conscious creators. And when we consciously create and use those skills and tools to be able to look at what we're grateful for, those passions we have, taking care of ourselves, and mentally prepare ourselves so that we can go out there and look for opportunities to see the blessings that we have out there, we can be the happiest people on earth. Thank you for joining me this week. And as always, we're creators. Let's consciously create this week. Love to all of you. See you next week.